Hey.
Yeah, Bob, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matana, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode 140 something. I don't have the exact number. I'm Cindy Saddleman, here for Something Else without Aria for some reason. The reason being is that she went to Full Gear. She had a press pass, and due to being surrounded by the stunning beauty of Mariah May, meaning being that she was in about 3 feet from her by being at the press conference, she's been passed out since then. I gotta find a way to wake her up. I tried smelling salts. That didn't work. Oh, I know. Hold on. Hey, Aria. Easy Money just got signed to AEW.
AEW is gonna die.
She's up now. So welcome to episode 149, I do believe, of Something Else with Aria. Oh, it's just 145?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. We actually recorded episodes 146 to 148 without you. We had to catch up.
Damn it. So did we not record 145 then?
I guess this is 145.
Okay. So 147 is next week's show. So who did you record 147 with?
Oh, we had special guest Bruce.
So you had Bruce on and for next week's show, but not this week's show.
Time is confusing.
Okay. And uh we better either get Bruce as a guest in a couple of weeks or tell people that that's a joke because hey, our listener may tune in if they think Bruce is going to be on the show.
It's a running joke that we've talked about for the past few weeks, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Bruce will probably not be on the show next week.
CreditRaja.com.
Yes. Bruce may or may not be on the show. CreditRaja.com. Is Raja.com even still a thing, you think?
Let's find out.
Late breaking news here on the Thanksgiving Eve edition of Total Nonstop Aria.
It's still up.
Wow. But I'm surprised, I guess.
Yeah, but it's mainly results and news from other sites.
So you're telling me that Raja.com is not investigating their own news?
I think after blowing it with the myth spelled MIDTH, I think they thought they'd best leave it up to the experts.
The mid.
Yeah.
What song? What word were they trying to spell?
Myth. MYTH.
And they somehow spelled it mid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, so it's Thanksgiving Eve in some parts of the world. It's also November 17th in other parts of the world. You know? But either way, this is Something Else. This is episode number 145, and we're talking about NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode 23 from November 27th, 2002, from the TNA Asylum in Nashville, Tennessee. So, thankfully, I watched the show before I passed out into a coma after sitting several feet away from Mariah May. You know, Harley Cameron, I'm gonna bet she's probably not gonna be on the show on Saturday. Harley Cameron's another one that she's She's a national treasure.
The pride of Australia.
Yeah, so all we need to do is bring in Indy Hartwell for a feud between the two of them. Although my head might explode. Although maybe you could bring in Indy Hartwell and the Iconics and have an Aussie four stable.
Whatever happened to the Iconics? I knew they had like a brief run in TNA or
Yeah.
Impact back then, but
They had like a 6 month run where they won the knockout tag titles. At some point, Peyton Royce married Shawn Spears and had a couple kids, and I don't know if either of them are still wrestling to this day. Actually,
well, we can always find out.
I used to have a huge crush on Peyton Royce too,
Mm.
and now I never called her Peyton Royce because she's not a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter.
Peyton Hoist Gracie.
Gracie, Gracie. And her partner is Billy Kay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's only 32 years old. Peyton.
Wow.
Yes. We have all the late breaking news here on this show. Uh, you know, we talk about what is Peyton Royce up to. And like literally on her Wikipedia, the last thing wrestling related is that run in Impact. Let's see. Be good if I could spell Peyton right. Do you know that there's no W in Peyton? No. I'm just
Oops.
shocked. Let's see here. She most recently to Cage Match, because I mean, keep in mind, Cage Match may not always be completely updated. She most recently wrestled for WSW in Sydney, Australia, teaming with Harley Cameron. See, I knew that, and I'm bringing this segment full circle here. You can believe me that that's what happened. And
And while I'm
for those,
scrolling, I found they've been really hyping up the SeatGeek stuff. Have been really hyping up Sabrina Carpenter with an alluring photo of her and all that fun stuff.
nice. By the way, Billy Kay has not wrestled since leaving Impact, so we could still bring them all together. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
Indy Hartwell's no compete ends in like 80 days. Anyway, let's talk about some TNA. Um, so let's tell you what happened this week in Jerry Jarrett's book, and I got some bad news because I'm coming to the end of Jerry Jarrett's book. I think he ends it at the end of 2002.
Oh
So
no. What
I
will we do
know.
for content?
Let's just go to the Observer. Um, but
All right.
this this week in Jerry Jarrett's book, Jerry tells Jeff that they need to pursue a TV deal with WGN in Chicago to better promote their product. It's not mentioned whether this is the local WGN that's Chicago only or the national superstation. But since the cost is allegedly $65,000 a week, I imagine it's the national channel. Um,
Yep.
because yeah, that would be an absurd price to pay for local to just Chicago. Um, he also points out that Dixie has not sold any sponsorships for the show, and she's not even getting close to selling any sponsorships. Now, do you remember a few weeks ago when I mentioned a man by the name of Chris Sobel and how he tried asking Goldilocks out on a date?
Yeah.
Well, this week, Goldie broke down in tears and told Dixie what happened. He also took Priscilla, who was Jerry Lawler's real life girlfriend, out to dinner and cut Burt Prentice's salary by $250 a week. So Chris Sobel's having a fantastic week.
Yikes.
Uh, yeah. And then in an email to staff, Jerry actually says something quite prophetic. Um, he says giving fans 2 hours of great wrestling matches will lead to fans taking them for granted, which in a lot of ways has been going on since 2015, first with New Japan and now with AEW, where you end up with so many great matches that last week's great match is already forgotten. And now keep in mind, he doesn't explain why he has to give us bad matches, just that you can't have great matches nonstop all the time. You would think that, he would be like, okay, well, we can't have three 5-star matches on the show, but, you know, we can have one 5-star match and four negative star matches. That balances itself out, right?
I mean, that's that type of logic that explains their situation right now.
Yes. He doesn't say anything about Sean Waltman in the book, but this is where we should note that Sean Waltman officially quit TNA the day before this show. And he doesn't come back until the first anniversary show. Spoiler alert. So we'll see in June, Sean. We'll see in June. So it's Thanksgiving Eve, not just in 2024, but also, surprisingly enough, since we're following the calendar to the day, it's also Thanksgiving Eve in 2002. And
Yeah, 4 days off, baby. 4 days off.
so for some strange, odd, unknown reason, Jeremy Borash starts the show by having Goldilocks sing "God Bless America." Um, the girl's got a good voice.
Yep.
Was it the national anthem she sang a few weeks ago
I think
for
it was
Veterans
National
Day?
Anthem. Yeah, it was National Anthem on Veterans Day. This was God Bless America. I think they did it
Thanksgiving Eve.
because of the announcement that they might be going to war.
Yeah, but I mean, we've been might going to war at this point ever since 9/11 because, you know, pretty much since that point, Bush was trying to link Afghanistan and Iraq so they could invade Iraq. But, you know, sadly, this is not the podcast to discuss that anyway. So we're going to go to our first match. It is the returning Briscoe brothers versus Divine Storm with Trinity. Dem Boys returned to TNA pay-per-view for the first time since a match back in July where they wrestled the Hot Shots for about 90 seconds before Malice came out and murdered them all to death. Mark Briscoe, I want to point out, is currently 17 years old, and there was actually an ROH storyline over the summer because the first 5 or 6 ROH shows were all in Philadelphia, and the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission well, at least at the time, had a very legitimate rule on the book that you can't have a professional wrestling match in PA under the age of 18. And so they had a story where Mark was mocking Jay for some recent losses, leading to ROH's debut show in Boston, where Mark could wrestle, and Mark was going to wrestle Jay. And, I'm sure it was a fun match, even when they're 18 and 17 years old. But I
Oh
haven't
yeah,
watched that show yet, so I can't state that as a fact.
that'd be an interesting uh new series after TNA, after the weekly pay-per-views. Go
Uh,
back and do
I,
Ring of Honor.
I thought about that, and I mean, I'm not saying no, but like just thinking about, having to watch a 3-hour show every single week, we might burn out, but we'll figure it out, you know, come, you know, 80 some odd episodes from now.
Isn't that just called
Um,
watching Raw?
yes, but I don't watch Raw, so there's that.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mhm. Plus, Raw's 2 hours right now. I still
Well,
don't watch it, but it's only 2 hours.
SmackDown's soon to be 3.
Uh, allegedly. But whatchamacallit, I'd like to point out that the streaming issues with our wonderful, or the streaming quality of this wonderful podcast is so much better than Netflix's. But that's not to say we're going to give WWE $5 billion to put Raw on our podcast network here.
Nope. Also, they are going to be streaming an NFL game soon. And
Yes,
there's going to
with
be a
two.
lot more. There's going to be a lot more eyeballs on that game than there was the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, and they need to get their
I,
act together fast.
I don't know if that's if maybe maybe not just because like I don't think it's not even a very big game, right? It's because it's not a playoff game, it's just a Christmas game.
Chiefs
Um,
Steelers, it's going to be big.
was it Chiefs Steelers?
Yep.
Oh, I saw the Ravens Texans and I'm like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, Chiefs Steelers, after the Bills beat the Chiefs last weekend, the Chiefs got their asses kicked by the Bills. And yeah, but by the way, Briscoes and Divine Storm, this was the usual TNA X Division opener with a lot of dives in and out of the ring, designed entirely to get the crowd going. We did have a bit of a screw up here. Mark went for a dive onto Chris Divine, but Divine hadn't gotten up from the previous dive yet. So Mark essentially did a flip dive over the top rope and landed on his feet before continuing with the match. Trinity, as we noted last week, is not Naomi. This is the Caucasian, dark-haired stunt woman, and she did her spots, doing the Hurricanrana, and she led her boys onto victory as one of them drops Jay Briscoe on his head for the win.
Yep. The SCD, the Storm Cradle Driver.
See,
I had this
didn't they
more
say
like a Ring of Honor style tag match, and I liked it.
didn't they say STD though? Like I know they meant SCD, but I could swear they said STD, like sexually transmitted disease.
Eh.
Well, and anyway, I note that Mark and Jay are obviously green here and have a long way to go, but sadly they don't become TNA regulars. And I'm sure that's at least partially due to the fact that they were not going to fly in Mark and Jay, and Delaware to Tennessee is not the easiest drive to make.
No, you have. Plus, Delaware, you have to like go to Dover Airport, and they don't really have that many regional flights to Nashville, so you got to go like
Probably to Philly.
Do yeah, Dover to Philly, and then
Or yeah. So yeah, I gave this a 4.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 6. I liked it a lot more than you, a little bit more than you did.
That seems to be a, pattern here on this show.
Yeah.
By the way, Sandy Fork, Delaware to Nashville, Tennessee. Um, my computer doesn't like me right now. 778 miles, 12 hours. Um, and that's
For about
uh,
$12.
and that's on a toll road. If you want to avoid tolls, it's going to be 13 hours.
Yeah,
So
that ain't happening.
no.
Cheaper to go to
So
just wrestle in Boston.
Mhm. After the match, Mike Tenay jumps on the soapbox. First saying that being with TNA has been one of the highlights of his career, and he loves the emphasis on athleticism and tradition. What he hates is being associated with garbage like Vince Russo. He does not like what Russo stands for. He sat aside for 2 years while WCW crumbled under Russo and refused to stand aside and watch Russo do the same here in TNA. Don West said that he didn't know Tenay felt that way, as he did not know Russo himself. Tenay mentioned that he would feel that way if he lost his job and was unemployed for a year and a half because of Russo. I mean,
Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, it makes sense. I don't know if I need the announcer to be the one to cut that promo, but you know, hey, let's go with it. If you're gonna get a strong promo out of somebody, it doesn't matter who the hell they are. Hey, if Borash could talk like that, let's give Borash a microphone. But yeah, so Tenay cuts a good promo, and we're gonna get to it. Like Russo and Tenay essentially feud for the next year, off and on. Like not really feud, but they feud in this sense. And ultimately, though, the problem is it's wrestling. In theory, if you're going to spend time building up a feud, it's got to lead to a match. And Mike Tenay and Vince Russo, spoiler alert, are never going to have a match with each other.
Right, because it's written in today's contract of TNA. It's no contact,
Yeah.
and I think
So
yeah, and I think that's a good way to go about it. Um, you could have had Tenay lead like a wrestling liege against Russo Sports Entertainment group, maybe for a 5-on-5 elimination Survivor Series style match,
maybe.
but that didn't happen.
It doesn't. Um, Now, tonight is going to be a night of rematches as we have a rematch with Jarrett and Truth for the world title in the main event, along with the 39th match between AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn in the 23 weeks this show has been on the air. Um, but we then get a video package, but then before anything else, it was time for an quote unquote a shoot promo, bro. Mike Tenay was mid-ring and introduced Jeff Jarrett. The lights go out and the music comes on, but instead, bro, it's Vince Russo's voice coming, booming out of the PA, cutting the music, cutting the lights, and Vince Russo with unibrow was in the ring. Um, Russo, we'll say this, like, bro, it's been 20 plus years. I'd hope that he's gotten all this shit out of his system by this point, but
Spoiler
you
alert: he
can.
hasn't.
Well, thankfully he's not on a TV program that gives him the opportunity to vent. But you can tell that he is really taking the death of WCW hard and like, you know, obviously he is not the sole reason WCW went out of business. But at the same time, you know, he left a WWF where he could claim success and went somewhere and he can blame anybody he wants, but at the end of the day, he was an epic failure. But you can see that he is taking that pretty bad here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but So Russo first tells Tenay to now the door hit him in the ass on the way out. If he wants to quit, then quit. He told Tenay to go home and pout with Sean Waltman, and next week we'll have a chimpanzee do his job. Russo calls himself the Antichrist, which of course is a total Vince Russo line. And spoiler, anytime you ever hear anybody on this show call themselves the Antichrist, that's a Russo phrase. It's like when somebody says in this very ring, it's a Vince McMahon phrase, you know,
Mm-hmm.
little things like that. He talks about how he kept a low profile, bro, for the last 2 years. And before this business gets deeper in the shitter, he better come back. He's here to talk about Jarrett and has a lot of things to say. And he threatened to smack the shit out of quote unquote the old man in the back if he tried to cut his mic. And then we get into shoot promo territory and how Jeff Jarrett had a shitty gimmick in the WWF. He left the WWF, went to WCW, and somehow Russo got heat for Jeff Jarrett leaving the company in 1995. Yes, the heat was on the magazine writer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't don't bother overthinking that one. Once Russo got his power, Jarrett begged Russo to bring him back. Then Jarrett begged Russo not to let the WWF bury him because, wrestling is fake. So Russo booked him to hit a 75-year-old woman in the head with a guitar. Russo jumped to WCW, so Jarrett jumped to WCW too. And again, because wrestling is fake, Russo made Jeff Jarrett the WCW champion. Finally, WCW got sold, so Russo was out of that hellhole and out of wrestling, bro. A year later, Jeff begged him to come to TNA. Russo said he came up with the TNA name, which is actually the truth. Uh, what happened was Jeff got dragged by his nose by a lying, conniving old piece of shit he refuses to name. Russo was told to go home and be called when needed. And since he was never called, Russo decided to show up. He said that WWE sucks, TNA sucks, and Vince Russo is here to save the day once again. I'll be honest, I was convinced in the middle of that he was going to say that Vince Russo sucks. But unfortunately, he did not have a slip of the tongue there. Russo is going to give Jeff one opportunity to join him because starting next week, there will be a drastic change, and he's begging someone to stop him, bro. Russo vows to help Jarrett win again this week, and after that, he wants his answer. With that, Russo dropped the mic, climbed the guardrail, and bailed out of the arena through the back door. I
Yeah,
don't even know
that's
where to
going to be
start with this
his.
one.
You forgot about the line at the end that Tanay said.
What did Tanay say?
Talked about an interview with Piper. And he said that Russo is a cancer in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I just ignored that one. But yeah, at this point, it's like, oh, here, I'm going to say the positives of this. The positive is Russo, especially when he's got something he can sink his teeth in to, is an incredibly passionate promo guy. You know, I don't want to ever see him wrestle, but he is very passionate and, he's a good talker for all things considered. He's a good talker. With that said, 90% of this promo should have been on the cutting room floor, bro.
Yeah.
You know, no one fucking knows the shit with him and Jerry Jarrett, and no one gives a shit. Especially since, like, you're not even naming him. And no matter what, Jerry Jarrett and Vince Russo are never going to have a match. And, it's like, well, he's saying this because, the inside fans know that Jerry Jarrett's the booker and him and Russo butted heads. Yes, but these are the same inside fans who would then know that this is not a shoot, bro, you know. But you know, without saying it, like he tells us wrestling is fake because you can't even say, oh well, he interfered when Jarrett won the title because he didn't. Every time Jarrett won the title, there was a crap ton of interference, but Vince Russo wasn't the person interfering. So you can't even
Yeah.
say, oh well, bro, he helped him win the title, bro. He didn't, bro. He didn't, bro. One was Kimberly Page, one was David Arquette. Um, and then there was that period where they changed the title on every WCW TV show, and I don't even remember where, but I'm confident Vince Russo had nothing to fucking do with it, outside of him being the writer that booked the show to happen.
No, it was probably more like Chris Canyon. It was probably Canyon because he turned heel.
Yeah. Anyway, bro, what'd you think about the promo, bro?
Bro, it was good. I liked it. Uh, just, I've seen so many Russo shoot interviews over the years, and like when he started in 2000, just the Bash the Beach promo and various other, like that Bash the Beach promo was a blessing and a curse. The blessing was that it kind of made that show interesting because aside from the Booker T Jeff Jarrett match at the end, it was an awful show. It's also a curse because now when we get these type of shoot promos, it's mind numbing. Like there are very few people who can pull this off. Russo can pull it off. CM Punk can pull it off. Triple H can pull it off, kinda. But when other people do it, just your eyes roll.
And
Uh,
it's not even so much that whether somebody can or cannot do a decent shoot promo, it's the timing of it. Like CM Punk did his one shoot promo in 2011, and that was a big ass deal. If CM Punk was cutting a shoot promo every week on Raw, and there was another shoot promo earlier on that episode with somebody else, nobody would have given a shit. It's like Russo doesn't know or doesn't care to know that, you can fucking you can't just do everything all the damn time. It's timing. And like I don't even know at this point. So
Uh, just a
I want to know.
question.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Are you watching the live feed or are you still watching stuff off of TNA Plus?
No, I'm torrenting it.
Okay, so we're gonna watch the same stuff. Uh, Throughout this show, uh, they kept on talking about the big silent auction that was happening. They extended it because the problems they've been having with their website to
Well,
December 15th.
they relaunched the website.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So all throughout the night, they have various short promos about the silent auction. The first one is Mortimer Plumtree. Somebody bid $2,000 already to manage against one of Plumtree's wrestlers. Then another bid 700 to manage AJ Styles, but Plumtree wants him to up it to 1,000.
Yes.
That's really interesting. Somebody would pay more to manage against Plumtree. Likely it'd probably be AJ Styles.
Or Ace
And
Steel.
yeah, I was probably going to be Ace Steel. And then you have somebody only bidding 700 to actually manage the best X Division wrestler they have on the roster, AJ Styles,
They
which
didn't
is
say anything
weird.
about managing Jerry Lynn.
Nope.
Um, by the way, I did want to point out one other thing about the Russo thing. Russo referenced Moolah, who's the 75-year-old woman that Jarrett hit a guitar over. The next night, to give you some 2002 context, the next night on SmackDown, Moolah was booked in the main event of the show against The Big Show. And the storyline was that Stephanie McMahon, who was the GM at the time, was on her period. So she took it out on Moolah. And in case you're wondering how that match went, Brock Lesnar came down and gave Big Show an F5 through the announce table. Bro,
Moolah wins by countout.
I don't even think the bell rang. I don't even know.
Uh,
Um, so they have the video package recapping Bruce attacking Lenny Lane, Brian Lawler attacking Bruce, and Goldilocks walking out with April. And at some point during the show, I didn't make a note of it, but at some point during the show, they note that Brian Lawler was supposed to wrestle Bruce, and they don't even give a reason why, but they basically just say that's not going to happen. So at least they acknowledged the match that they announced last week, even if they couldn't even bother to come up with a explanation as to why it's not happening.
it's weird, and we're going to talk about that later.
Yep. America's Most Wanted versus the Hot Shots. Remember last week when I bitched about countouts and disqualifications and how TNA won't enforce the rules until they randomly enforce the rules? TNA randomly enforced the rules. Jim Mitchell and Belladonna come out. AMW walks out to the ramp and stares at them from 15 feet away and get counted out. The Hotshots win a very basic match by count out. Um, and AMW goes after the manager and the woman, who is also a manager, and they go to give her the death sentence. By the way, didn't they give her a move last week? Didn't they give her the 8-second ride?
Yeah, Storm gave
Uh,
her the 8-second ride.
yeah. Not mentioned this week, and she was here, no neck brace, no nothing. But so they go to give her the death sentence, but the new church misses their cue, and so Chris Harris had to stand on the top rope a lot longer than he should have before Slash and Brian Lee ran down to break it up, and they beat down Harrison Storm until security got involved. I know I spent 2 seconds talking about the actual match, but I gave it a 3.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I gave it. I said it was your box standard AMW versus the Hot Shots match. The story around the match is more interesting.
Yes.
This has to do with the countout can be explained. They talked about James Mitchell's mind control and how it kind of extends their opponents, forcing them to play the new church's game. And I think that's what's happening with America's Most Wanted. And will
So
continue to happen with America's Most Wanted until they probably get the tag titles back.
so he has mind control over the referee to make a count out.
I mean, what is he supposed to do? Both guys were quite a few feet away from the ring. The Hot Shots were both in the ring. Count out.
Cindy, that makes a lot more sense if we didn't see that in every main event match. Every main event match on this show has people up in the stands, and that will continue for the next 2 years. Crowd brawling with no count out, and then they'll randomly do a match like this where, oh look, here's a count out. You know, either enforce the rules or don't enforce the rules. But it has to be level across everything. And by the might as well just fucking say it. In the main event, they tease a count out, but have Bullet Bob come out and restart the match. And that was after Jeff Jarrett and Ron Killings fell off a lighting rig through a table. So theoretically, they're now hurt, and who knows if they can actually continue. So then, when the two guys are hurt and who knows if they can continue, they can have the match continue. But this match where we had a count out because the two guys just stood outside and I mean there was no visible injury or anything that we knew of. This match was not good enough to earn the match being restarted. You
Exactly.
know,
The match wasn't that good.
but again, it doesn't matter. You need to consistently enforce the rules or consistently not enforce the rules. I don't care what it is. It's your company. You can do whatever you want, but you have to be consistent. You know, if we sat here and talked about WCW in the early to mid 90s, there will be 10 matches that end by DQ due to an over the top rope DQ. And then there'll be 10 matches on the same show that somebody will go over the top rope and it's not a DQ, nor will it be mentioned. That's the level of inconsistency we're going for here.
No, you have to be there's a reason. You have to be propelled by somebody over the top rope. That was the rule.
Oh, they didn't always follow that, believe me. But anyway, Goldilocks asked Borash how much he's worth because apparently there's a silent auction to announce with JB and also to have a date with Goldie. And somehow the date with Goldie is less than announcing with Borash. So Goldie vows to give away a fruit basket full of ripe, plump oranges if we get the sum up to $1,750 or $2,000. By the
2000
way,
was the
the
number I got.
the auction is no longer for the DC Sniper either. It was for something else. It was, I think, they named the charities. I didn't write them down.
I
I just
did.
remember that it wasn't the DC Sniper anymore.
It was for the Faison School of Autism, which is local to Nashville, and breast cancer awareness.
I approve. But in another part of backstage, Goldilocks, wearing a completely different outfit, using some mad voodoo shit, asks Dory Funk Jr. if she can speak to Jeff Jarrett because Dory Funk Jr. just happens to be there. And Dory, who apparently has the decision making in this situation, says no, Goldilocks cannot speak to Jeff Jarrett. However, Dory says he has a vested interest in tonight's main event. So last week, Ron and Don Harris won a number one contenders tournament to get a World Tag Team title match with the NWA Tag Team Champions, The New Church. So up next was NWA Tag Team Champions, The New Church with Jim Mitchell and Belladonna versus Curt Hennig and BG James. Because, yeah.
Well, they
Um,
explained the Sean Waltman's disappearance after when BG and Curt came out.
Yes.
Essentially,
Um,
it was Russo. They openly
yeah,
said on the air it was Russo.
yeah. And it's true, which is the weird thing, and I guess the thought is that everyone is just convinced at this point that Russo is going to be writing the shows or will be writing them soon, which I mean is the truth, but I mean we don't uh but I mean Russo's been there since June. Like he's been there since the beginning. And it's like now that he's becoming a TV character, now is when all the anti-Russo forces are like, no, we can't work with him. I don't know, just weird. Anyway, this was not the usual quadruple juice match we've seen Lee and Slash have with AMW for the past month. And this match, honestly, it was fine. This match wasn't bad. It just, it was not the New Church versus AMW. This was a basic third match on the show, tag team match, which I mean is fine because that's what it is. It's a third match on the show, tag team match. Finish sees Hennig give Slash the Hennig flex, but Lee breaks it up. BG goes for gay butt sex, but Lee booted James's head off. Slash goes for the pin, but AMW runs in for the disqualification, attacking the New Church, which I guess the New Church won, but the problem was AMW missed their cue because these two teams are just a second off today in all cases. So Slash had to lift himself up before three, and we get a giant three-team brawl with everyone involved. I gave it a 3.0 out of 10.
I was a little harsher than you did. I have it written here. It was not exciting. It felt like a match you'd find on a Coliseum videotape. It was fine, but I was yawning halfway through. 2.5 out of 10.
Well, to be fair, you were also watching it. Weren't you watching it like midnight last night? Although I guess it was only like 9 o'clock your time, but still.
No, I was actually watching it around 11 o'clock last night, so you were correct. But I did rewatch it this morning, and I still yawned.
Tanay and Don West do a hard sell for their silent auction, which they don't tell you what it's for, but I'm assuming it's to call a match with them. But it's
Mm-hmm.
up to $2,300.
That's actually very impressive. I mean, out of you see the stuff that's actually involving pro wrestling is selling the most. I mean, we talked about earlier managing against Mortimer Plumtree is what 2,000 right now.
Something like that, yeah.
Uh, Ring announcing with Borash is at $1,250. Calling a
That's a,
match with
that's a,
yeah.
that's one I'd want to do. But remember when WWE like I don't know, how long have you been watching wrestling? Like you've been watching it
Oh
forever, right?
yeah, I've been watching it forever, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Do you remember like 93, 94 when WWE would like bring like random audience people out to announce a match on Superstars or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah. They probably did not pay $2,300 for that.
no,
Right?
they probably had, and the thing about this is these were usually kids,
Yeah.
and that's something that you can go to the schoolyard and say, "Hey, I went to this wrestling show last night, and I got to ring announce a match." And
And, and of course, no one will believe you until it shows up on TV.
right, and
Plus, they were at the show too.
yeah, and they never cut those They never cut those uh pull from the crowd ring announce matches because those matches were frequently used for two things: one, to hype up a match with a future opponent, and two, for Jerry Lawler to bury the ring announce kid.
Of course, you got
Yeah.
some ugly ass kids in the Northeast. Um, Easy Money versus Alex Winters, whoever the hell that is. They did as many moves as you could possibly do in 3 minutes. Money won with his suplex where he throws his opponent instead of dropping him. They named it 2 weeks ago. I don't remember, and I couldn't be bothered to go back and look. 2.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I have. 2.0 out of 10. It's the cha-ching, is what it's called. But I want
There
to.
you go.
There was a really cool chant. Let's go, Jobber! To
Be
Alex
honest,
Winters.
I was so not paying attention to that. I was trying to figure out if Easy Money was a heel or a baby face because he was a heel. Or I'm sorry, he was a baby face the first week and a heel the second week, and it didn't seem like he really had one way or the other here.
I think he's just there and kind of still over, I guess.
Where
Like, at
we
least he's
have
getting a
some
little bit of reaction.
we have something to celebrate up next. Goldilocks is backstage with Bruce. Bruce said that since he's now showering with April, he is no longer Bruce, but he's now Alan Funk. And Alan said that he was being a good friend to April, who is a very sensual woman. Goldie mockingly says that he isn't gay anymore and asked about Alan's Miss TNA crown. Alan said he may just give it to April. At this point, they don't even acknowledge Goldilocks walking off with April last week during this segment. And the good news is we are pretty much done with Bruce.
Yeah,
I
this is
mean,
the. I think this is the last segment unless something happens next week, but I don't think that will happen. I want to talk about the line Goldie says. She really snarked at Alan Funk. Starts in by talking about the headlines, how two big boobies and a bag of chips turned a gay guy straight. I mean, what was the bag of
apparently,
chips?
I can't even bother to answer that one. I don't even know. Um, but yeah, he he's he's now straight and pretty much out of the company at this point. So yippee!
Yeah, he
Crimson
had a
Dragon.
he had a dark match this night against Rick Santel,
Yeah.
and that's his last thing he'll ever do of TNA.
Oh darn. That's so awful.
Shucky darn.
Cr Crimson Dragon versus Sonny Siaki. Last week, Chris Hamrock randomly put on a mask and became the Crimson Dragon, and with it, lost all of his talent. And he had a three-way match with AJ Styles and Jorge Estrada that I shit on and Cindy loved. And something tells me that we're going to have a similar opinion about this match, but I guess we'll see here in a second. Um, at, and Crimson Dragon, for his second and I believe final appearance in the company, went out and got new gear for his gimmick. And he should have saved his money, kid. Should have saved his money. So we'll see what you think, but I thought this match was a lot better than last week's match, thanks in large part to the fact that Dragon was now wrestling somebody who was a lot closer to his style than AJ and Jorge Estrada. Uh, at one point, he did go flying over the ropes and nearly drop kicks the announce table while almost falling headfirst onto the concrete floor. Siaki blatantly low blowed him while the referee warned him not to kick him low. And then Siaki won with a Siakalypse after doing a belly to belly suplex off the top rope. After the match, Sonny took the mic and said he was tired of facing people who are joke opponents, saying he should be in title matches and main events only. 4.0 out of 10.
3.0 out of 10. It was a match that happened. Um, but here's the funny thing about that promo. He didn't do his Sonny Siaki bit. He didn't go, Sonny Siaki is tired of being a joke. Sonny Siaki, yada, yada, yada. He used I. That's when you know it's serious.
It's a shoot, bro. Um,
Can
so
we
remember,
talk about
Mhm.
the next 15 minutes of torture?
Sure. So
Because now we
I,
got the
I was gonna
official end.
I was gonna skip it, but then you said let's talk about it, so let's talk about it. Goldilocks talks to April backstage. Brian Lawler's in his pickup truck watching April shower with Bruce over and over again. he really needs to watch that 5-second segment that frequently. Goldie tells April to knock it off. April said Goldie sounded jealous, which made Goldie walk off. Yay for a lover's spat. Then
April
JB
looking like
introduces,
she ate the canary.
yeah. Then JB introduces Brian Lawler, who comes out because he was just in a truck watching Goldilocks shower, or not Goldilocks, but April shower with Bruce a minute ago. So how the hell did he get to the ring? Whatever. So Brian is crying and said he gave everything he had to April. He asked the kid to please shut up. At least he said please. He mentions April having sex with Six Pack, showering with Bruce, and now having an affair with Goldilocks, which admittedly is quite the progression for a character in 3 weeks. Lawler decided to quit the wrestling business altogether, much to the fans' delight. And then as he leaves, Priscilla comes up and they leave the building together while Brian rubs her ass. Where is Jorge Estrada when you need him?
Well, this also marks the end for Priscilla. She's done.
Yeah. Jerry Lawler was not thrilled that his girlfriend was being taken out to dinner by a Panda Energy executive.
Nope.
So, your thoughts on what we just saw?
Uh, Thankfully, you know how both of us grew up on wrestle, have been associated with wrestle crap before. I've done
Yes.
write ups. I've done an induction and a few jobbers of the week. Um, you've done some stuff in the past.
Hmm?
How come this was never brought up?
Brian Lawler with April and Goldilocks and
Yeah.
Six Pack and Priscilla.
Hmm.
I mean, to be fair, they haven't inducted everything in wrestling history.
Yeah, but this was something that ruined shows.
I mean, the show is pretty bad with or without it. So, I mean, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it necessarily ruined it.
Well, it made it worse.
Ish. I mean,
So
don't get me
with
wrong. I
that
know it's bad.
done,
Just yeah.
and I
So
had to
I
recheck
don't
my
know.
spelling a couple of times because he says at the end of his promo, "You won't have a Brian to kick around anymore," and I accidentally wrote, "You won't have a brain to kick around anymore."
So I know Brian Lawler does come back in a few weeks,
Yep.
but I think this might be the end of the April Priscilla storyline.
Yeah, it's done
Yeah, yeah. It was so great beforehand.
because all the main players are now gone. Six is gone. Um, April Lee, and that means April's gone. Then you have because April Lee was there for the backstage stuff. She wasn't in the live crowd and stuff like that. So all that stuff could have been pre-taped before Six quit.
Bro.
Bruce is gone. The only one that's still there. Oh, Priscilla's gone.
Mhm.
Like the only one left out of that entire situation is Brian Lawler, as you said, he returns in a couple weeks, and Goldilocks.
If you want to include Jorge Estrada, because Jorge Estrada was involved with the storyline for 1 week, but yeah. So
I don't think
just when the
Brian
sh
Lawler's problem was with Jorge Estrada. And plus, it was just Priscilla was just essentially Jorge's manager. They weren't an item. They weren't
but
lovers per se.
Priscilla was Jorge's Priscilla, you know. Anyway, X Division champion Jerry Lynn versus AJ Styles with Mortimer Plumtree. So at this point, pretend that the first hour and 15 minutes of this show didn't happen because you had to suffer through all that to get these last two matches. And this was not their usual match. To be, fair, like they went and took this in a completely different direction and it worked.
Oh yeah.
This match was a lot more aggressive, a lot harder hitting, a lot more punching, you know, and we got some blood here, folks. Jerry Lynn was wearing the crimson mask, quite literally, if I do say so myself. Um, Mortimer kept trying to interfere. The referee does begin to get suspicious of Mortimer, but can't prove it. AJ uses a tilt-a-whirl scorpion death drop. Mortimer screams that he needs the belt. The finish sees Mortimer jump on the apron and throw a pair of knucks in the ring while he distracts the referee. Lynn got them instead, knocked AJ the fuck out before making the cover and retaining the gold. I I really like this match. I wrote your usual great Jerry Lynn match. I gave it 8.5 out of 10.
I give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like I know Mortimer does not last as a manager, and I thought he was already done with AJ. To be fair, I thought the Mortimer AJ thing was like a 2 week thing, but it's been going on for at this point almost 2 months.
Yeah, and it was a decent story that was built for Mortimer. Like he wanted to essentially buy the X Division title.
Mhm. And he is failing miserably at that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tune in next week where undoubtedly AJ Styles will win a number one contenders match so he can face Jerry Lynn in 2 weeks for the X Division title. Um, to the back, we saw Curt Hennig and BG James talk about their respective silent auctions, one for dinner with BG and the other for golf with Curt. And then at some point in here, I didn't even write it down. They went down the hard sell for next week's show with a bunch of stupid matches that include AMW wrestling the New Church in two singles matches, and the winners of those matches will have, what was it, a bull rope match with Jim Mitchell?
Mm-hmm.
Not, I, it did not inspire me to just, it didn't inspire me to write it down, much less inspire me to want to watch next week's show.
They had an X Division elimination match, but the main event is Sonny Siaki versus Jerry Lynn for the X Division title.
Allegedly the main event. We'll see we'll see if it actually is, the main event. Because, Siaki is happy with non-main events as long as the non-main events are for the world title or for a title, excuse me. So they did a random sit-down interview with Dory Funk Jr. where Mike Tenay asked him a number of subjects. Um, at one point, it said on the screen Dory Funk on Jack Briscoe, and all I could think was, that's the worst porno ever.
Mm-hmm.
And they spelled Briscoe wrong. They spelled Briscoe like Mark and Jay instead of Jack and Jerry.
Yeah.
Um, NWA World Champion Jeff Jarrett versus Ron Killings. It's been 22 years. I still have no fucking idea what Jeff Jarrett's theme says, you know. Uh, this was a condensed version of last week's match as they just didn't have nearly the time they did last week. Jarrett puts on the figure four. Truth reverses it. They break it and roll to the floor. Jarrett takes a breath and screams no as Truth dives through the ropes into the waiting arms of the world champion. Truth hit, I thought, a really nice frog splash, and actually one of the better frog splashes I've ever seen. And I'm wondering why he never did that frog splash ever again. Because I'm like, everyone you've ever seen do it since, like, I thought it was better than Eddie's, better than Christian when he did it, when D'Lo did it. It was better than Chavo's frog splash. You know,
Chavo's frog
but
splash is horrible.
yeah. Uh, Jarrett blatantly gives Truth a low blow in front of the referee, which should have been a DQ and the title should change hands, but the ref was too busy placing an order for a seeing eye dog. Jarrett does the stroke, and then we get the false finish I talked about earlier, that they fight outside the ring, up all around the building, up a lighting rig, and they fall off the lighting rig and crash to a table. And at that point, after several minutes of them fighting outside the ring, referee Scott Armstrong has decided now is the time to count them out. Bullet Bob comes out and orders the match to continue, even though both men may not be able to stand. And this is where I point out a countout is okay in the second match, but not okay in the main event. Okay, so as long as we got all that settled, of course, before the bell even rings, both men who just fell off a lighting stand are already back in the ring doing spots. Truth dropped Jarrett face first on the exposed turnbuckle, but only gets a 2 count. Killings picks up Jeff for a suplex, but Jarrett's feet strike the referee. Russo suddenly appears at ringside and gives Jarrett a guitar, but Jarrett smashes the guitar on the ring post, proving that he is not aligned with Vince Russo, and then he gives Truth 3 consecutive strokes for the pin. After the match, Russo takes the mic and says the game's end tonight and wants to know what Jarrett's decision uh, is, and apparently Jarrett not working with him a minute ago was not enough of a signal. And then we get the bullshit Nitro ending where they go off the air without giving you the conclusion or teasing the conclusion, which was dumb enough on Nitro and even dumber when you're asking people to pay $10 to watch the damn show. And after all that, you might be surprised to hear I still gave the match a 6.5 out of 10.
I liked it a little more than you did. I gave it a 7, so we're right around the same level. Also of note, and this is a big note. At the end of the show last week, it said J Sports and Entertainment, right?
I assume so. I can't say I noticed.
Now it says TNA Entertainment LLC, which essentially tells me that it's now complete.
I mean, pretty much here at this point, it's now a completely different company. Well, I mean, it's the same company, but now someone else is writing the checks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I was not a fan of going off the air with if you tease it and Jarrett just doesn't say anything and walks away, fine, whatever. But instead, you're going off the air of your pay-per-view with Jarrett about to make his decision, and it's like, oh no, we're out of time. Watch next week. Pay $10 next week. But yeah.
I have to mention something.
hmm
We're You mentioned something about WGN. Like
Yes.
during this time, they just started syndicating Explosion.
Correct.
So my feeling is that this would be the WGN deal would get a national airing for Explosion.
Yeah. They were still going to do the weekly pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
They were just, you know, also just wanting to put Explosion on somewhere. So, show's over finally, and somehow like this show better than I ranted about it. Overall match quality of 4.43. Overall enjoyment, I gave it a 6.5 based purely on the last 40 minutes or so. I'm really not enjoying Russo being the new overarching villain, but as long as he remains limited, then it won't be a bad thing. Future build, 3.5 out of 10. The matches next week, like we mentioned, do not set my world on fire, and finding out about Russo's newest group does not give me joy, which means I should throw it out. And gives us an overall quality score for this week, 4.81.
I didn't have any grades written down for the entire show myself. I'm too tired. Plus, I just finished watching it, and then we started doing the podcast.
That's right. Well, so we've reached another end. Um, if you are listening to this on Wednesday, safe travels today. Enjoy your holiday this weekend. Don't do anything really stupid. And if you're driving through Pennsylvania, don't rear end me. And that's gonna do it for this week's show. You know, any
It,
anything you want to plug or talk about here before we sign off?
thank God I got 4 days off of work.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
Yeah, I'm more of a country girl, but that's neither here nor there.
All
Um,
right.
Sorry about the mess of the smelling salts earlier. We needed to wake you up because you have to be the one to press the button.
I mean, not everyone can press the record button and then the stop button. It's a it's a hard gig, but someone's got to do it.
Yep. And also to say the line that we will see you next time in 7 days.
Bye.